So to create a pivot listener, you right-click on one of your existing beacons, go to Pivoting and Listener. Now give it a name. I always call it something like the computer host name, pivot, and then a port. The payload type, there's only one supported payload type at the moment, which is a TCP. The listen host will auto-populate from the IP address of the beacon itself, and then the listen port can be anything. By default, the session is also the beacon that you right-clicked, but if you have multiple beacons, you can actually just choose a different one from here. And then you click Save. Now, it populates this reverse port forward command in the beacon console, but if you actually try and type this out manually, it just throws like an error, so you can't start a pivot listener this way. So what that is actually done is started a TCP server within our current beacon. If I pop O in there as well, you can see that the PID binding this port is 3644, which is the PID of this beacon. So this beacon is now acting as a TCP server, and it's waiting for another TCP beacon to connect to it. You can also see the listener in the listeners menu here. Now you also can't create pivot listeners from this menu, but you can see them here, and you can stop them from here as well. But I guess part of the reason for it to actually appear here is because it automatically integrates with all of the normal workflows. So if you want to generate a payload for that listener, it's here. And if you want to do something like jump, so let's do jump PS exec, let's jump to server 1, because bfarmer is a local admin there. You can also select the listener here as well. So if I switch to the graph view, let's actually host a scripted web delivery. So let's just call this B. Select that pivot listener. And then I'm going to jump over to workstation 2 running as nlam. And we'll just download that. Like so. Now if I do a netstat here, we can see that there's now an established connection. So this beacon now is acting as the TCP client, and it is connecting to port 4444 on the IP address of workstation 1. And we can see the PID here is 3976. And if we go over to Cobalt Strike, we'll see the beacon here. And you can see it's a green arrow because it's TCP, but you'll also notice that the arrow is coming in the opposite direction to the normal TCP listener beacon. So the arrow, it kind of denotes the direction of the network flow. So this is the server and this is the client. And so this is connecting to us. And you notice that we didn't have to, after the payload had been executed, we didn't have to manually connect to it or anything like that. So that's basically how the pivot listener works.